And that's the thing that fascinates me the most. And just to be clear for the listeners and viewers, so you are a one-man shop.
Yeah. So I do everything myself.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Today, my guest is Yoni Wunderman, who is CEO and founder of Compliance Edge, which is a tactical knife company. He's a one-man shop. I went to his shop in Point Loma, San Diego, and saw all the different machines he uses, and he walked through the processes that he has tried and that have not worked, that have worked. It's really an amazing journey he's been on in terms of finding what works best for him, and we go over all of that stuff in the podcast. We also touch on his marketing strategy from social media to email, and then we talk about some of the things he's working on to give back to other knife makers. He's actually working on a course to teach other knife makers to get their businesses started. So you'll hear all about that in this conversation with Yoni. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, The Nichols&Dimez Show. We've got the full episodes on YouTube now, which is really exciting. But that being said, please enjoy this episode with Yoni Wunderman. Yoni, what's up, man?
Not much, dude. Just getting ready to do my first podcast.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, what a cool shop you got here. We're right in the middle of it where you're making all your knives, and
Thank
we
you.
got the machines all around us. So I love setting up in a different environment every time, and this one is sick.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of work getting it to where it is, but it's definitely a cool spot. So.
Yeah. Well, man, I am stoked to get into the Compliance Edge story, but I think it'd be good just to get to know you a little bit,
Sure.
Understand where you come from, your life background growing up, and then really when did you realize you wanted to pursue entrepreneurship? Just for the sake of this podcast, that's what we focus on, but we want to get to know who you are first.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Northern California, and kind of growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do necessarily. Like I was never really didn't have any career set in mind. I was always into making things. Like I used to I have like booklets of like drawings of knives and stuff.
So you were drawing knives all the way back then?
Yeah. Since I was like a little kid.
Why do you think knives that early?
I don't know. I was just always into like knives and weapons and stuff like that. It was, I mean, a lot of little boys are.
Sure,
I was kind of drawn to it. And I just always kind of like making things. And so I grew up in Los Gatos, and kind of around the age of like 13, I got into training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which led me onto my journey making knives, basically. And went to college and studied economics.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, also didn't really know what I wanted to do. There was a part of me that like maybe wanted to go into law enforcement or something. And that just didn't work out. They said I was like too much of like a risk taker, like on like the interview thing, which is a good thing. Like I didn't, cause I'm happy where I ended up, but, I just, didn't really have any direction in life.
Mm-hmm.
Was just kind of going with the flow and stumbled upon knife making. It kind of found me, like literally my buddy Matt Darcy, who is one of the head instructors at Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu in San Jose, one day was just like, sent me a picture of a knife and was kind of like, hey, do you want to make a knife? And that's how it all began.
Wow.
Growing up, like my stepdad owned his own business. My dad owned his own business. My mom is a music teacher, but like not necessarily always at a school. So she would have private students coming in, stuff like that. So everyone in my family at some point or way has owned their own business. So it was always around me. And it's kind of weird when people like say I'm an entrepreneur, because technically I am, but I don't feel that way. For me, like I'm just a craftsman.
Yeah.
I'm just making something that I like. And it like entrepreneurship was never like a scary thing because everyone I know was kind of doing it.
That's huge. That's a huge trend I've seen, by the way.
Yeah. And like my stepdad, he's a musician and like the kind of stuff, he does a lot of stuff, but his like bread and butter is like kind of weddings, bar mitzvahs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
and he was super, super successful. So like having him around was cool because I saw someone that was able to take something that like a lot of people would say, if someone tells you they want to be a musician, like that's like a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're not going to make any money doing that unless you're like a rich, famous, whatever. But like he's not famous, but he definitely made a lot of money doing that, by like, he does events and hires other people to do events. So, like at any given time, he might have like 50 events going on, around the city. And so I kind of got to grow up seeing that because he was in my life from when I was 4 years old. So, it's just always kind of been around me growing up. I worked for him for a little bit. I like DJ'd for him for a few years.
Oh, really?
And then when I was in college, I like sprung off and bought my own equipment, started putting Craigslist ads like, oh, whatever, DJ for hire, like your wedding, blah, blah, blah. And started doing it on my own. Instead of like having a normal job in college, I would just do like one wedding, make $800, and that would cover me for, 2 weeks of school or whatever. So
that's awesome.
Just always kind of been around it. And like, having that experience doing that when I was younger led me kind of into this and made it so not so scary, I guess you could say. Because I know for a lot of people, like taking those first steps into starting their own business is difficult. And luckily for me, I just was so around it that it never even crossed my mind as like a risk.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, so I mean, it was just so standard to do something on your own that it wasn't like a scary thing. Like you said, that's such a key thing you said, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't picture myself now working for anyone else, but like I definitely couldn't even back then just because I never had like I said, like my first job was working for him when I was 14. And he would take me out to like events and show me the ropes. And then even once I was in college, like I just kept doing that on my own. And there was maybe the first year of doing this where I would still do events on the weekends and I would make knives in my garage for a little bit until I just made enough money making knives where I like didn't have to do that. Cause I found that I liked doing this way more.
Yeah.
And I didn't, like the drunk people every weekend dealing with that, loading equipment. Like it was nice to be able to make money from home. So I just eventually kind of gave that up.
Wow. And where'd you go to college?
I got my degree from San Jose State, but I kind of bounced around before then. So,
for sure. Nice. And so you got into jiu-jitsu at age 13, and you said it was one of your instructors who sent you that picture of the knife?
Yeah. So back in like 2013, he sent me like a picture of like a knife blank, right? So like just a cut out knife from a piece of metal, like not finished or anything. And the way I recall it is he texted me that and just said, want to make a knife. And that was my buddy Matt Darcy, who's like the head instructor pretty much Dave Carmelo owns the gyms and is like the head instructor, but he's the guy in charge day in, day out of like San Jose Guerrilla Jiu-Jitsu. And it was really weird because like before, the way I remember it, I think it happened before he even sent that, was I was thinking, because I was about to graduate college, I was a few months away and I didn't have a plan yet. I was thinking, what do I want to do? I don't know, but I've always been into making knives and like kind of interested in that. And I was thinking in my head, it'd be really cool whenever I'm done with whatever job I do, like when I retire, to make knives out of my garage and have
it as a hobby.
Yeah, and have a dog.
Yeah.
And so and then randomly within a year later, I was making knives from my garage and I bought a dog, like went to the pound and got a dog. So me and him were just doing it. So instead of waiting till I'm 60 years old and retired, I just decided to do that now.
Yeah.
And never looked back really. So
wow. Okay. So he sent you this picture of this knife cutout and then you just started doing it with him for fun.
Yeah.
Right. Was he selling them? Like how did the business portion of this start?
So he wasn't selling any of the knives he made. We basically we went to Harbor Freight and each bought some equipment and we set it up. There was a back room of the jiu-jitsu school, which is kind of similar to the room we're in now in size, like a 10-foot roll-up door, good amount of space. And we just started making them, and he was definitely doing it for fun. I was doing it for fun too. We would just do like, that's the main thing, was both of us were doing it for fun. And then I happened, it was right when I was graduating. So I graduated and wanted to move out of the apartment I was in with the girlfriend I was in at the time. Found a duplex in downtown San Jose. It was about like $1,400 a month or something, and it had a garage. So, we moved into that duplex, me and my girlfriend, and I had that garage sitting there, the little one-car garage, when I was already making knives over there. And I'm like, well, I could bring those tools are mine, so why don't I just bring them over? Because the problem with making knives while people are training jujitsu is it's loud and it makes a mess and it's like smelly, and the parents of the kids class what's going on back in that room over there? Yeah. While they're so it was interrupting like the jujitsu school for sure. And I wanted to do it all the time. I was super addicted right off the bat. I wanted to do it like day in, day out. So I just moved all my stuff into that garage of the duplex. Had no intention of setting anything up in there when I rented the place. It just worked out that way.
Right.
And then, just kept doing it, kept buying new equipment. So he had kind of tapered off after a few months of it. And I just kept making knives in that duplex, getting more equipment. I had another friend from the gym join me. He was an ex-military dude and, he was active duty law enforcement, still is active duty law enforcement, at the time. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to make knives with me. And he was the one that was like, you can sell these things. And I was telling him I'm going to have to, because it's really expensive to buy all this stuff. And I don't make much money. Materials are expensive. And so together we came up with the name and started the business officially together. And just started making knives out of my garage. And then within a month or so, I think he was working full time as a cop. And he has a wife, kids, and I'm 21 years old, 22 years old in my garage doing this shit 15 hours a day. And I told him hey man, I think I'm going to have to do this on my own. Cause you're able to come an hour or two here or there, but this is really my thing right now. We're only a month or so in. Can I pay you for everything you've put into it? And can we just be cool? And he was no problem, dude. This is your thing. I want you to go with it. So, he was out from there. And then from the last 10 years, it's been just me running this show. So,
So how did you actually learn to do this craft? Did your instructor back then teach you?
So Matt showed me a few things, but I actually took metal shop in high school. So I had a proper training, on how to use the basic tools of knife making. So drill press, bandsaw, angle grinders, belt sanders, those kind of tools. When I originally started, all this stuff has only been in here for a few years.
Right.
When I originally started, the first 7 years of my career were all done by hand, or mostly by hand.
Wow.
And so I think making knives by hand is pretty intuitive. You have a belt sander and you want to shape this, you just grind the metal. So there was no real showing me how necessarily. Maybe some tips and tricks, and then we would go on YouTube and see dudes. There was this dude, Three River Blades. He had pretty good videos on how to grind the bevel of the knife, which is the bevel is this part right here.
Okay. Yep.
Because that was kind of the only real tricky thing at the time. So we'd watch some YouTube videos and just try things out. And then as I got into it more, just kind of quickly figured out my own techniques. Sharpening was a hard part for a while. My first few knives, I actually sent out to a place to have sharpened, almost like one of the places where you would send your kitchen knives to get resharpened.
Yeah.
And they got them sharp, but it just looked like shit. And it was very disappointing because you put all this work into a knife and then it looks like shit. And at the same time,
they screwed it up.
Yeah. They definitely did a hack job.
Wow.
And so
after you made it by hand.
Right. Yeah. So some of my first 2 or 3 knives I ever did were sharpened by a different place, and the edge definitely looks crappy. but I don't even know where those knives are anymore.
Right.
So it doesn't
You've made
matter.
a lot.
Yeah. So like sharpening, I created my own kind of techniques, and going on YouTube, Instagram, stuff like that, you would just see guys doing things in certain ways. And so you started to create your own, you just learn as you did it. There was no official school. There's no program. There's no blueprint for it. It was just a mixture of YouTube, remembering stuff from high school metal shop, trial and error. And then once Instagram came into the picture, Instagram definitely helped. And every once in a while, because you'd see like in the back of someone's Instagram video, some kind of like interesting setup on their grinder.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, what's that for? Like, message them like, what's that for? And they're like, oh, this is for, whatever, surface grinding or sharpening or this or that. And you go back and forth with guys and kind of create like new ways of setting your equipment up, new ways of doing things. So that's kind of how I learned. It was just, a combination of YouTube, trial and error. And I think it's very intuitive personally. Once you get started a little, it kind of just, you pick it up pretty quick.
You figure it out on your own, self-taught.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
exactly.
really just an art that you can learn to do really well, or you have some sort of artistic bone within you, right?
For sure. Yeah.
It's like being good at making art. Basically.
Correct. So it is a form of art. And yeah, if you're like someone that's, I can't draw, you're like, well, you probably can't make knives. If you can, but it's not gonna.
You got to have a steady hand and do. Things
you don't have to have a steady hand. That's for sure. Like I don't have a steady hand, which is when I was hand grinding, I would use a lot of fixtures and stuff to keep me like at the angle. And even when I sharpen now, I built my own equipment so that it locks my angles in, because I'm not that guy that can freehand grind super clean every time. But you don't have to be. There's no point. Like there's no people used to call it cheating, and I'm like, I don't know. What are we like? We're not in a competition on who can freehand grind the best. We're trying to make the best knives. Yeah. So I'm going to use the best techniques that I can.
It's like drawing a straight angle on a piece of paper using a border, right?
Right. Yeah. You're like, why would if the goal is to make a beautiful painting and you need a straight line, I guess there's some pride in drawing it by your hand, but just use a ruler and do it right, and it'll look good. And the customer is going to be happier in the end. So,
for sure.
We're just, you kind of just start and you keep going.
Yeah.
And there was a natural kind of evolution for automating stuff over the years, right? Going from hand making to automation.
So let's talk about that actually. So
sure.
So what was the exact process when you were doing everything by hand from start to a finished product? And then I'm curious to understand how that changed when machines like this came into play.
For sure. So maybe we can link it somewhere, but I have a 10-minute video of me making a knife from start to finish fully by hand.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So for people that want to watch it, they can see, but basically by hand, if you're going to do it truly by hand, you're going to cut your pattern out of a bar of steel, grind it into like the outline shape. And then most people will grind that bevel on there, not fully, but just get it started on each side. Heat treat it, which is, so it's going to go in the oven, come out, get quenched. If it's a steel like this, you'll do a cryogenic treatment, which is going to be like a deep freeze in liquid nitrogen for up to, I would do mine overnight usually. And then double or triple temper. So going back in the oven after that.
And so what does this hot cold process do to it? Does it soften the material?
So the material comes soft and you want to harden it. So basically the heat is what makes the molecules do a bunch of stuff. Like I'm not super scientific with it, right? I send everything out to a professional heat treat place now. But
but you used to do it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. But it's pretty easy to just follow the steps of put it in at this temperature, take it out, quench it, dunk it in. But what's happening is like the molecules are moving around and doing a bunch of crazy shit, right? And then when you cool it down really fast, it locks in that property and basically makes it hard. The cryogenic treatment stabilizes it a little bit more, which kind of gives you like a sharper, like a longer lasting edge overall. And then that tempering, because the steel gets too hard from all that. So like if you were to drop that knife, it could shatter, wouldn't most likely shatter, but probably crack.
Sure, like a piece of glass or something.
Yeah. But then, so the tempering brings it down to a little bit softer than what it is, but still much harder than what it once was. So you're going like, if it's the start, bring it up here and then temper it down a little.
Interesting. Okay.
So, and that's what you need to create a working knife. Like, it doesn't matter how cool the knife looks, doesn't matter how well it's built. If it's not hardened properly, it ain't going to do what it's supposed to do.
Right. That's so interesting. The hardening process.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah, I did it myself for years. And like I said, like when you're not doing oil quenched steels, these steels are all what we call plate quenched or air quenched, where you basically, instead of dunking it in oil, you put it between two slabs of aluminum and that draws out the heat and it also keeps it nice and straight. And with those steels, it's really easy to like, not have to understand everything and just, you can literally follow like the instructions. It's like a cookbook. It'll say like, put it in the oven at this temperature, leave it in there for this long, take it out, put it, quench it, boom. It's going to be done. Test it on a hardness tester and then, test it practically after that to make sure you're doing it right. But like I said, yeah, now I just send it all out to a, multi-million-dollar place. That's all they do is heat treat. Just because I was losing I would lose like 3 blades a week to warpage or so the blade would kind of bend, or they would just have other small issues with like decarb where like it gets too much oxygen on a certain part.
Right.
So yeah, I've been sending it out now for a while.
And then how big is the you put it through this heat cold process as a big sheet of metal, or is it divided into small sheets? How does that look? It's
going in when it pretty much already looks like a blade.
I see.
Like your knife can be like the blade part itself will be pretty much almost done.
Mm-hmm. So and you already created that.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
So you shape it first and then harden it. Okay.
Yeah. So you do like you shape your blade, harden it. Some guys do like, maybe 80-90% before heat treat and then finish it after. Mine go into a heat treat 100% done and they come out. That's why I use that place is because their process, like they just come out perfect every time. So I can send it to them finished. When you're hand grinding it, it doesn't matter really if it warps a little or does some stuff on you because you can just grind more of it afterwards.
I see.
With these, I'm not going to stick them back in the machines and like touch them up. So I just, send it out to a place that does it in like a oxygen free vacuum furnace, basically. Yeah. So from there, you would finish grinding your blade if you're doing it by hand, and then you'd make your handles, and make your sheath. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is you would just, I used to basically bolt a piece of material over the blade, clamp it to it, and then just drill through it and start grinding that handle onto the shape of the knife.
Wow.
And then same with the Kydex, like you would just heat it up, put it in a foam press, fold it over, and then you would drill your holes and grind it all out. Wow. One at a time. And
jeez, man. Yeah. And so what is the material of the handle and then of the sheath?
So the handles are G10. It's like a fiberglass laminate material. And the sheath is Kydex. So it's a plastic that you heat up and it becomes really easy to work with. And then you cool it down. It holds the shape and it holds its kind of retention, its springiness. So really popular for like gun holsters and
for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. So then what about the machinery now? So how did that process change when you brought these two big things in your shop here?
So the way I started getting into CNC machining was actually through routers, which are, I don't know if you can see from your camera, but directly behind you, there's two routers over there. And they do a similar thing to what these machines do. They're just much cheaper and lighter, smaller, less cost prohibitive, let's say. And I started, the first step for me was like, so in speeding up my process and automating from by hand was to get those routers making just the handles. So the handles is a really time consuming part of the process. And it's also
interesting.
The nastiest part of the process, I could say, because like the handles and sheath both, because grinding man-made materials like fiberglasses and plastics is just a big mess. And you always wear a respirator with everything, but it's still just kind of grosser. Like grinding metal is like not a big deal at all. Like,
wow,
you know, but grinding this stuff is just nasty. So my first step was to get the router because it's less cost prohibitive. You can't do metal. You could do metal on a router, but it's not meant for it. Like, you're going to go so slow. You'd be lucky if you made a knife a day, or, you know, just cutting that many passes at a time, just because it's such a hard material. But so, yeah, I started with the handles, and I bought like an entry level router that I don't have it anymore. I sold it, but, and I didn't know how to use it really. So it came with a really easy to use software that was good for cutting out just a basic shape that you could then hand grind over. But in terms of like getting them to where they are now, where it's all done in machine, textured, everything ready to go, like I didn't know how to do that yet. So I would use that software to kind of cut them out on that router and then still grind them by hand. And then
is it almost the software? Is it almost comparable to a 3D printer, or completely different?
So yes, you can definitely use you can use that software for 3D printing. Those stuff I use now. The one that it came with, no, but it was like really simple. It was basically like insert your shape and then you're going to cut out a 2D. Like, it was just 2D cutting. It wasn't like 3D texturing or anything like that. Once I started getting the way I got into 3D texturing was I found a guy that already kind of knew this stuff, and I would pay him to make the files for me. So it was nothing like textured like this, but it had like just a rounded kind of simple handle, and I would go back and forth with him, and he would send me the files. And I'd be able to run that out. And that same guy kind of got me into doing the sheaths as well. Like, I gave him what I wanted to build, and he did the design and like would output the files for me. So we kind of went back and forth with him for a while. And that was how I first started, was doing the handles and the sheaths. The blades came after. I never really wanted to do this stuff myself. What happened was, maybe a couple years before I bought this, I hired a different knife making manufacturer. They're pretty big, and I did a production run with them. So I took this design that you see on the box, like that's the Vendetta design. I sent that to them, and they had all this same machinery, and they made the blades and the handles for me, and the sheaths and all that. And I thought that that's what I was just going to do for like ever, I guess.
Yeah.
But then they kept like, every batch they would send me, something would be off. Like, the grind would be messed up on one side, or the holes in the handle were too big, or every single batch. And at the time, it was a big investment for me. Like, each batch was like $5,000 to $10,000. And it was a lot of money to put down for them. And then their wait time would be like 6 months for, you know.
Oh, wow.
So to myself, I'm like, okay, like I want to do 100 because that's all I could afford, like that $5,000 range. So I'd put like 100 down, wait 6 months, do that. And I would think like, oh, maybe I want to do 500 because if it's not that it takes them 6 months to make 100. They're like, takes them like 2 or 3 days to make them. They're just so busy. So they told me, they're like, you could do 500 in the same time period. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't afford like whatever, 25 grand.
Putting all that down. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it just that. And then once they started, like, every time something was wrong, so I'd wait 6 months, something would be wrong, and then another 3 months for them to fix it. So then all of a sudden, like, getting one batch every 9 months. And I'm like, this isn't a good way for me to
not sustainable
to scale that. Like, cause at the same time, I'm still making handmade knives.
Right.
And so that's when I started getting interested in the CNC stuff, which led me to get kind of into doing it on the routers, the handles, and the sheaths. And there was a time also where like I would go to like machining, I guess you could call it, trade shows, and try to find someone. There's a million machine shops. These machines aren't scarce. Like, they're pretty common. Trying to find a company that would be able to do it, that could have faster turnarounds. And I found people that could make it. The problem is that a traditional machinist is going to make you a blade based off your specs, and they're not really going to care about some of the fine nuances of the knife that a knife making company already knows about or a knife maker knows about. And additionally, like when I went through them, their quote, so to get like a finished blade, handle, and sheath, not assembled, not heat treated, not like finish or anything, not sharpened, just raw parts, it would have been like $100 per knife, which just was not something
cost effective.
Which makes sense because like that's about now, like I can raw materials costs about that like half that, $50 or so for each knife. That's before like tooling or anything like that. Like if I had to make one, just if I had to do what they were doing, like it cost me about $100 to do exactly what they're doing right now. So they actually were, you know, they were definitely making profit, but like the way I run my shop, even if I were to just give you those same parts at 100, like it would be break even for me. So you're not, I ended up not really saving money in the long run.
So, I mean, you tried a few different routes to manufacture them. You try to outsource certain parts of the process along the way. You tried different things.
Yes.
Basically
Yeah, for sure. I've tried a bunch of different things. And so what I ended up figuring out was like, because of wait times, costs, all these different factors, like you're going to have to do it yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing that fascinates me the most. And just to be clear for the listeners and viewers, so you are a one-man shop.
Yeah. So I do everything myself here.
So, I mean, and that's so inspiring. It's incredible because it's like, even for me, I've done this whole podcast completely myself, and it's a whole process in of itself, but this is much more complex in its own way. Right. And it's just like the fact that you've tried these different ways to become more efficient or find ways to be more cost effective and scale yourself. But yet you still it seems like you mostly come back to still doing it yourself because you just have realized you do it the best. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So it really, like, it is that age old saying of like, if you want it done right, do it yourself. And it's just so true. Like it really is. That's, for me, it's the only way to do it. And,
particularly if it's a craft, if it's an art craft like this.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've hired different companies. I've talked with different people. It just, for me, if I wanted to scale and keep the integrity of my knives and have them still be my knives, because you can hire you can find cheaper shops. You can go to China. You can do this. You can do that. Like you can get shit made, but it's not going to be the same product.
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, I could bring guys in here and train them how to sharpen, assemble. I've had guys come in for short periods of time and try to do stuff, and like you're not going to get the same thing by when they do it as if when you do it. And that is what I think makes my knife special. I get messages literally on the daily of people that say, hey, I picked up one of your blades. I own this company, this company, this company. Yeah. I thought theirs were going to be nicer than yours, and I liked yours better. And I'm like, that's because I made it. I didn't train someone and have them make it. Yeah. As good, you could have the best employees in the world. There's probably still not going to be as good as yourself. I have 10 years of experience sharpening my knives day in and day out. Yeah. So, not trying to knock anyone else. I just know that that's how I do it, and it works for me, and it keeps the integrity of the product. So my knives come out exactly like I want them to look. Like everything on the blade is a design feature that I've incorporated into it. There's no like, oh, I messed up here, messed up there. None of that. It doesn't happen. Yeah. Like, it's exactly as I want because I do it my way. And the cool part about doing it yourself is you can customize the colors really quickly, which is one of the big points of my business right now is like colors. Yeah. Yep. I only have 6 models, but I have.
Close to the mic.
Sorry.
Are you good?
I only have 6 models. I only have 6 models at the moment, but I have hundreds of knife, options on my website because there's like 30 different color combos for each knife that I offer, plus different custom engravings, this and that. And that's why I'm really glad that I never found a good shop to work with, because you're not going to get that by outsourcing. You're not going to be able to say like, I want 4 green, 10 black, 6, like your vendor's going to drop you in 2 seconds. Wow. They're like, but for me to just
too much customization.
Yeah, it would just be it would just be super annoying to do. It's annoying for me to do when I'm doing it for myself. So like they would definitely just tell you no for the most part. But for me, like it really doesn't make a difference. Like most of the material, I'll buy this sheet of material and have it pre-cut. All my materials pre-cut to the exact same sizes. And so I'll just I can for me, changing the colors around is nothing. Like doesn't matter. So I don't need to do 50 of the same all black knife. Like I can just do 4 of those this week.
Wow.
Like most times when I drop a knife, I only have 4 of them, and then you just have 20 different options of 4 of them. Like, so.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, everything you just shared it says so much about the integrity you have in your craft and in your product and your business, that you have this unwavering belief in yourself to create these knives better than anyone else can. And you're going to give them your best work, and people know what they're getting when they buy one of your knives. Yeah. Because it's you who made it.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not getting sloppy by scaling and adding people just so you can get more volume out. But you really put in the care and detail into each knife.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, that's
huge.
That's like, I really do care about my knives. I care about my customers. I want to give them a good product. Like if people have an issue, I always take care of them. Like I've never hung anyone out to dry on any issue. I'll always treat everyone like how I would want to be treated. I do my best. I create the products in a way that they're simple to make. They're not super complicated designs. Mm-hmm. That way you're not setting yourself up for failure. You just created a system that makes it so you're going to get a consistent product nearly every time. Mm-hmm. People know what they're going to get. And that's why I end up having customers that buy 3 or 4 of the same knives, or 3 or 4 of each knife, because they like all the colors.
You have loyal customers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's cool. And that's a good transition, because I want to understand who your ideal customers are. And we have so many different knives out there, right? We have kitchen knives, and in your case, we have tactical knives, right? And they have, I just would like for you to describe what the most common use cases are for these knives in terms of who you're selling them to and what they're being used for.
So it's really all over the place. I wouldn't say it's exactly one person, but the people I see a lot of law enforcement, see a lot of military, see a lot of guys that were law enforcement or military, like retired. Mm-hmm. And then just a lot of collectors and enthusiasts, kind of like dude, they'll call themselves like knife nerds kind of dudes that are just into gear. Quite a bit of those, because I think that people like I'm going to say custom look, it looks like the hand textured, like this style of knife is a very like kind of handmade looking blade. And I was able to transition that to using machinery, and keep that same look. So I think that there's a lot of options in the knife world, but there's probably not a lot of options that 100% look like mine, just because most companies that are doing it by machines, they make a knife that looks like it's made by machines necessarily.
Yeah, I see.
And the guys that have that same handmade style aren't able to make 200 blades a month,
Yeah.
So it's harder. Like dudes will want something from a certain custom maker maybe that harder to get, whereas I have more availability. Right. So I think that there's some kind of collector types that like that. Some hunters, I get pictures from hunters like that are like, oh yeah, I use this blade. I'm not a hunter.
Animals and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a hunter. I have no hunting experience. Growing up in California, it never happened. So I never say like that I make hunting knives, just because it's not my I don't have any real knowledge of that area. But if they work for that and people use them for that and they're happy, like I'm happy too. Yeah. So yeah, it could be whoever really. I get a lot of literally there's no exact customer. I do get to work with some like military like platoons and stuff, which is pretty cool.
And do you have I don't know how much you can share about that, but do you have like a contract or deals that are ongoing with them?
No, I don't have any deals with any through the government or anything. It's usually group buys. So I've gotten to do a whole buds class before, but it was guys paid individually for their blades and but did it with, all their engravings of everything that they wanted.
Oh, that's sick.
So yeah, usually all the military stuff I do, anything like that, it's all, it's all been paid for directly by the people that want it. I've never even looked at getting those kind of like contracts because one, I probably wouldn't be able to make as many as they would need. And two, I would probably go insane making the one exact knife over and over and over again. I take a lot of pride. I really like interacting with my customers. I like creating the different colors, and I like not having a boss.
Yeah.
And if I got a military contract, I definitely have a boss.
Would have a boss. Yeah.
I like having a lot of like short-term bosses. Like everyone that buys a knife from me is my boss from the time that they buy it to the time that I get it in that box, because like
it's a great way to put it. Short-term bosses.
Yeah. Like, that's why I like tried to avoid doing like pre-orders and stuff too, because all of a sudden if I pre-order or sell 100 knives on pre-order and then you have 100 people like, hey, how's it coming? Hey.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, do you prefer like, I guess, the custom orders versus you just being creative and making your own product? Like, how do you compare?
So so I don't really do custom orders anymore. I just make what I want to make.
Yeah.
And I try to have that coincide with what I think people want. And so I listen to people on social media. Oh, like if they're like, we wanted the blackout of this knife going to be available again. Like I'll take mental notes and be like, okay, maybe we should make some more of those. But the way I do it is, and this is the way that I've found I can make the most knives, which means I can make the most money, which also means I can make the most people happy because I'm giving them the most knives, right? And that is for me to make as many knives as I can in a week and then post them on my website Friday, 5 p.m. So dropping them basically.
So every Friday at 5, you drop a new look.
Not a new look, but just whatever I felt like making that
Whatever
week.
you've made.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
how many knives usually become available each Friday?
I can do 40 to 50.
Okay. In a week.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I try to aim for, 160 to 200 knives a month.
And how do you take pictures of each one of these 50 or so and post them on, or
so
a bunch of them are the same?
No, yeah. So it's like, for instance, this color, right? Yep. Bronze gray with carbon fiber. This knife over here is in that same colorway. So I'll do like basically one colorway that you spread across.
I see.
So I have like all black, bronze gray, carbon. This one's black with OD green and multicam black. I have kind of color combos that I've found that work really well together, and I can spread those across my knives. So each week I'll probably have, like for instance, this week I'll have 7 different options, and out of those, a total of like 43 knives. So it's some I'll have like 10 of, some I'll have 4 of, some I'll only have 2 or 3 of. But every week I try to keep it fresh with which blades I'm making, as well as keep the big popular ones I'm trying to do pretty consistently, which would be like the all black or something. But I mean, realistically, there's like, I probably have 50 different color combos that I do.
Wow.
Just because there's so many blade finishes, so many handle colors, different handle materials, sheaths. So yeah, I just try to mix them and match them every week and get people what they want. And I've found that that's the best way to do it. I'll do custom orders occasionally. Like if someone really wants something custom, I can do it. I charge almost double to do it.
I see.
Because for me, when I do it this way, I just make whatever I want, put it in a box, ship it out to whoever ordered it. The second you start doing customization, I have to be like, that's this person's knife. That's this person's. Track it along. Each knife you're tracking now, like with who it's going to, and it just ends up taking twice as long than if I do it this way.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that's great. So the way you had mentioned that you look for feedback on what people are liking, what they want. You said you go on social media, right? Is that pretty much the main place you go to get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and let's talk about that, because I'm curious on your social media strategy. You've built an awesome page on Instagram. Compliance Edge. Yeah. I mean, you've got close to 100,000 followers on that.
70,000, but I think if we add Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and everything, plus the email list, we got 100,000
for sure.
But we're been stuck at 70 for a while now.
Yeah. So could you take us through that journey of what was your philosophy in just social media in general and posting pictures of these knives and growing this presence?
Sure. So I was lucky, like I said, that I got back on. It started in 2014, so 10 years ago now, next month. And back then, it was really easy to grow on Instagram. There was no algorithm. It was just chronological, and like Forged in Fire was just about to start. So like knife making was hot, and I would just make my knives, take pictures of them, post them on Instagram, hashtag fixed blade, custom knife, handmade knife. And it was like back then, like that worked.
Yeah,
like, it really did.
Worked.
I got to like 1,000 followers in like a few weeks, and then like 10,000 within the first year or so.
Man, the timing, such a factor. It's
100%. I feel bad for guys getting into it today because like it's so hard to grow with all the algorithms and stuff, especially making what they consider weapons, which they like deprioritize.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, for me, it came natural. I've never realized that I was good at self-promotion. I never realized that I was good at like marketing myself or advertising. And I always thought it was just that like I made good products, but like I've heard from other people, they're like, no, you definitely have like a very good way of like, even when you write stuff, like you create scarcity, but without creating necessarily, like you're not keeping people out, but you are creating you're not creating like a barrier to it, but you are creating some scarcity. So like entices people a little, and just in it, I don't know. It came kind of natural to me, just how to write a good caption, how to take a good photo.
Yeah.
It was never something that, maybe it was my marketing teachers from like college. I don't know. But yeah, it just really came natural, and it was never something I put too much thought into. I definitely also was heavily addicted to social media, and like spent way too much time on it. Constantly like looking at what people were writing, comments and going back and forth and trying to, it's always like trying to make a post that people will engage with. And,
I mean, just looking at your page, I mean, do you take all these pictures on your phone?
I have like a shitty DSLR camera, but a lot of my photography was done by my cousin, Josh. He was, for like a year or so, he was doing full-time photography for me now. And then now I'm back to
expertise helping you there.
Yeah. And
these pictures are awesome.
Yeah. He's got a really good camera, and he's good at photography. He built a sweet little setup, and then I moved that setup into my garage because we were living together. We were roommates. So it was like, I could just bring knives home and stuff, and he would shoot them.
Nice.
And now we're not living together, so I have that set up in my garage, and I'm shooting them. I probably need to buy a better camera and get back into like focusing on it. But it's just you kind of figure out how to I figured out how to shoot knives pretty easily, and I figured out that I was good at shooting knives when I would send them out to I've tried photographers before. And the photos I would get would be not as good as what I would take in my backyard back in the day.
Same thing as making the knives.
Yeah. So I was like, wait, like maybe it's not the photographer necessarily. Like there is a way to shoot the knife the way you want to light it and get it. And like, I don't like, I've never photoshopped anything or like heavily edit it. It's all really lighting and angle. And yeah, it's just doing social media, growing it, all that was never something I put too much thought into. It just sort of happened over time. And 100%, it was luck in terms of timing, like getting on Instagram back when you could still grow.
I've heard that from a few people actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But even then, back then I used to there was a page, Moderno. I'm not sure if they're still around, but they did gear reviews and stuff. And when I was first starting, I would send out a lot of free knives to guys that had bigger followings than me that did either reviews or photography or this and that. And I still send some stuff out every once in a while, try to do collabs with people. But that was a really key factor in trying to grow. And I'm sure for someone just starting out trying to grow, that would probably work really well to get you like your first few thousand, followers. Cause that's a pretty hard number to break these days.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed is like you can get to a few thousand, and then if you're at where I'm at, it's also hard to get to to grow from there. Yeah, like there's like certain points where you can get to, and then it just kind of gets stagnant right
Yeah,
now.
it's so interesting. I mean, they really do have a lot of control over that because I've heard people on this podcast who they'll blow up like a couple 100,000 followers and then just at some random number 193, they'll get cut off.
Stuck.
Yeah, just stuck.
And you get followers every day. I'll get 1,000 followers a month, but you lose 1,000 too.
Right.
That's the part of being that big. If you got 100,000 followers, 1,000 people a month are probably going to delete their Instagram account. So like, even if you gain 1,000 a month, like you're going to lose 1,000 a month. You're just kind of like cleaning it out and getting like new people in.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of stopped caring about social media growth that much. Cause I'm like, well, you're still getting people in. Other people are falling off. They're not
staying steady at a
I couldn't, if I have 70,000 followers on Instagram, I can make 2,000 knives a year. So like that's what, 30 years of customers. If each person bought one knife, like first of all, only 1% of them are ever going to buy a knife anyways.
Right.
But even still, like, for me, I'm like happy with where I'm at with the level of, my business. So I don't worry too hard about trying to grow. For me, like the scary things are like getting your account shut down.
Yeah,
that kind of shit. Like,
that's so much of your market.
Right. Like the deprioritization because it's a weapon, that kind of stuff is scary. Like getting banned, that kind of stuff. So,
okay. So actually that's a good transition because one of the big things I've heard and listening to podcasts about marketing strategies, especially using all these big tech social platforms, the best way to back yourself up is to have an email list.
Yes.
One thing that's come up a lot. And you have one.
Yes.
And I would guess that every Friday you send out an email with your new dropped knives, right? And pictures of them to your people on your list. So how do you describe the importance of this email list to you? What else do you use it for?
The email list is incredibly important to me. And that's what I try to grow. So my real goal right now, like with social media, is to get my followers from Instagram to join my email list. And I do that by, like last month, I released a new model, right? So like I had 5 models, now I got 6. And what I said was like, the first dibs goes to the email list.
Yeah.
I might do that every week. Honestly, I've been toying with that idea where like, if you're on the email list, you get first dibs. And the list is big enough that they're going to take them every week. So it's going to be like, you have to be on the list to get one kind of thing, potentially.
Well, that's sick.
Yeah. So for me, it's super important. Like I get people messaging me constantly that are like, man, I've been waiting for this one knife. And I know like you posted on Instagram. I didn't see the post. I missed it. Right. Cause Instagram, the way the algorithm works is it doesn't show people
for sure
your posts. Like if I post to 70,000 followers, the highest that ever see it would be 30. That would be the best post of my year.
Yeah.
So less than half. An average post will be maybe 6,000 if it's good.
Yeah.
And probably something I posted yesterday, maybe 2,000 people got to see. So like, you're not going to even see the knives that I'm going to post that week. Most likely it's just not going to show it to you because you're stuck with the algorithm.
Yep.
My email list has 50% open rate. And that's just the open rate, which is from what I've been told is really high.
Really high. Yeah.
So the email list, like I even have, my cousin did my website and he even put instructions when you sign up onto how to make it so that it goes not to your spam, not to your promotions tab, like step by step so that you can just get my emails. Right. And a lot of people know too that I'm dropping every Friday, 5 PM. So they'll just kind of go and check it out. But yeah, if you're the people that miss out constantly, I always just tell them join the email list. Doesn't cost anything. I don't send spam. The most emails I send in a week is 2. And it's usually a picture with whatever it's going to be available that week. A little bit of text description for people that like to read. And then a link, which is like the whole thing's just a link. It's one big picture, right? And you just click anywhere, takes you to the front page of my website. Like for the guys that get it, the return customers, it's really simple. They're like, we know how to get your knives. It's not like, it's just for the people that are used to, that aren't our new customer. And like everyone is so used to Amazon where it's like, oh, this is available and it's available now and it's going to be ready. And like,
a little different.
Exactly. So what I'll notice is like, it takes guys maybe a couple times and people sometimes get like, oh, I went on your website and it was sold out. And I went next week and it was sold out. And then you'll reply to them and say, hey, here's how it works.
Yeah.
And some guys will either be like, fuck this, or they'll be like, how do I join the email list? That list is super important. And I do give people kind of like, you know, when I do a new model, they get the early access, and I'll probably just do that, you know, maybe once a month, not to be annoying, make you do it every week, but like maybe once a month I'll start doing that just to try to grow that list, because that list, it can be downloaded. So even if the company that I use to do my emails decides that they want to stop dealing with knives too, like Instagram, I can download it and find a different company.
There you
like
go. Yeah.
I can't download all my Instagram followers information into a list. The way that I was always all about Instagram for a while. And then I don't know if you know William Painter.
Not sure.
They make sunglasses. They're based out of PB.
Okay.
But Pat, the owner of that, he was like, we would do joint giveaways where we'd give away glasses and
a knife.
That's sick. And I was always like, oh, make one of the things like, we want to try to get followers. And he's like, no, we're making them enter by email. We want their emails. And I was like, oh, I saw no value in it at the time.
Wow.
And then a couple of years later, I was like, dude, do you still have that email list from the giveaway that we did? Like, and it totally makes sense. Yeah. Cause Instagram is just like, it's a great app. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Like I have all of what I've built is because of it. Right. I'm so thankful that it exists and that I'm living in a time where, you know, I don't have to travel around the country going to knife shows just to make a name for myself and sell my knives. Every day is a knife show on Instagram.
Wow.
But at the same time, I'm fully aware of what it's becoming and like the restrictions they're putting on the knife community and tactical, you know, firearms community in general, all that. So, I play by their rules. Yeah. Guys that get their page banned, usually it's because they don't play by the rules. They talk about, like this rib tickler will cutting flesh and talk about killing and stuff. You're like, you can't talk about that there. Like even like the name of my company, like I'm kind of glad that it has nothing to do with like anything tactical. Like the word compliance throws people. It throws people off. And like the meaning behind it was like, most people think compliance of like, and they think it of like a negative kind of connotation right off the bat, which I never even really realized until like 10 years in. Right. So, cause I've had people be like, oh, stupid name. And like you're going to comply with all the local laws. I'm like, no, I'm getting someone to comply with me using it. Like, it's the old gain. Like it's a tool to gain compliance over someone else.
That's cool. Actually,
that was what the meaning behind it was. But I think that I'm really glad that I have that name because I think it's allowed me to fly under the radar. Like my Instagram doesn't say knives, it just says Compliance Edge. Yeah. PayPal, guys get their PayPal shut down all the time. My PayPal just says Compliance Edge. Like it never had an issue. Wow. Knock on wood. Yeah. Banks, all that stuff, like loans, whatever. Like I've never had an issue because my company's just Compliance Edge. Yeah. Like,
damn, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant.
And I wanted it to be something bigger than myself, which, you know, like guys, a lot of dudes will have I could have had, my last name is Wunderman. It's a pretty cool name. Wunderman Blade Works. Yep. Wunderman Knives. People are like, you missed out on that opportunity. I'm like, no, I didn't. I created something that looks like a big company. So people immediately have more trust in it. Yeah. Which is important when they're buying a tool.
It's very simple. Compliance Edge.
You can sell it easier. If I ever want to sell, I'm not selling like my name to something. Like it's just anyone could own it. I could come in, I could come out and see like, this is my first podcast. Like I don't like attention. I don't post myself on my Instagram. I put one man shop only, not cause I want to brag about doing it all by myself, only because people will be more patient with me when they realize like, oh shit. Yeah, no, like, of course these are harder to get and there's not that many. He's one guy trying to do all this, because the people that skip past that and just think it's a bigger thing will go, they'll be like, oh, what is this fucking scam? Like you guys are holding stuff back, you know, like you're just holding back blades to pump up demand. Like, dude, no. Like I'm really,
it's really just you.
So it's kind of the name, you know, was good for social media. It kept things mellow. It's good to, you know, stay kind of off that radar of like the tactical realm, but I still get all the hits and dings that people get. Yeah. Maybe just not as much. So
I see. Mm-hmm. Man, well, I love the marketing strategy and how you've danced through that in light of all the different restrictions that have come around. that have come about over the years, especially in regard to weapons and anything around that. But I'm curious if you could point to the biggest challenge you've experienced. It could be a specific time in your entrepreneurial journey or just something in general. What would you say?
I had a good one, and I remembered, and now it's hard for me to recall.
No worries.
Let me think. I mean, really just, there's no blueprint, I guess you could say. So the hardest part is just doing the whole thing, really. Like there's not one thing. Like I have to remember to order steel, order all the materials. I have to be talking with customers. I have to be doing my taxes and dealing with accounting and everything. All that. Like there's so many little moving parts in this business. Like each one of these machines has 10 different of these little tools that you can see behind me. There's just so many moving parts, and it's so hard to keep track of. That's probably the hardest thing I will say overall, is just keeping track of all the moving parts while having daily people get, you get a lot of praise, but also a lot of people that are mad about bullshit, whatever, sending you nasty emails, just all of it at once, kind of all the time, where you're trying to build something really, small and really cool, but it takes a lot to get it there. There's just so many moving parts, all while making it affordable enough for your customers and also making enough money for yourself that it's worth doing. Yeah. Right.
It's just the whole picture of running a business.
I mean, there's no there's no real thing that I can point out. I haven't had one thing that was oh, this part of my journey was so difficult. It's just all of it,
man. That makes sense.
All of it. There's no easy way to put it. If you're going to do this kind of thing or run any business, I'm sure there's some businesses which have a lot less moving parts.
For sure.
Right.
Well, let me piggyback off of that question. Maybe this is a better way to answer it. It's a question I ask every guest on the show.
Sure.
But it's, what is an entrepreneurial life hack that you have in mind that's against the mainstream belief you could share with the audience?
So that's against the mainstream belief.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so perhaps just something unique to you, right? Something you've learned from everything you just said about this overall challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a couple down, but let me see. Two big one would be say no.
Say no.
Say no a lot.
That's big. Hard to do.
Yeah. You can say no to customers. You can say no to whoever. The customer's not always right. I mean, like I said, I always treat everyone with respect, and I always take care of my customers, but I say no to probably 90% of the emails and messages I get, because it's people want to change some colors around or do this or do that. And if I start doing that, it just creates it. There's this whole process here. And by saying no, I get to keep doing this process. Yeah. And sometimes people get really mad about it, because in their mind, they're like, all you have to do is unscrew the gray and swap it with the green. And I'm like, it's more complicated. There's a pipeline of things flowing, and all of a sudden you're just going to put a rock in it. Right. And mess it up. So just saying no is definitely a good life hack. That would be a big one. I mean, small little life hacks. I like to, under promise, over deliver.
Uh-huh.
I always do that when if I do a pre-order.
Good one.
I don't want everyone to get the idea that when they get a pre-order, it's going to be there sooner.
Yeah.
But
no, that's good.
When you get a pre-order from me, it's usually going to be there sooner.
Especially as a one-man shop.
Yeah. I always, whenever I have a wait time in mind, I usually double that, and that's what I'll tell someone. Yeah. I don't get any ideas if you're listening that you're going to get your product faster. But that's one thing that I always do is I under promise, over deliver. The way I read, when you were asking me earlier about life hacks, I was thinking things that kind of speed up my productivity. And one of the big ones was I got a meal prep company,
Oh,
and
cool.
like, just by doing that, you don't have to leave for lunch. You don't have to mess around with that. I probably make like 10% more knives in a week just by like doing something as stupid as that.
Yeah. Which one do you use? Which meal prep?
It's called like Sunday something Meal Prep San Diego. It's a pretty popular one in the
Nice,
area.
okay.
But like for me, that was a big life hack where you're like, you don't have to make your own food, and you also don't have to go out for lunch every day. That
And
right
you're eating
there.
healthier.
Yeah, you eat healthier. Yeah, for sure.
Those are good ones.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Oh yeah.
If there's anything other. I mean, there's ones we already talked about, which is like sell multiple colors. Like you don't have to have a huge product line if you could just change a few colors around.
Right. Just little differentiators.
Yeah, small things like that. You can, when your hardcore customer base will appreciate it, and they will want multiple colors for sure.
Create some uniqueness to it.
Yeah. Definitely, stay off your phone, and as hard as that is for everyone. I found an app called ScreenZen that I use, and that works really well.
Okay, and that is like a timer for...
Yeah, it's a timer, but it's basically like if you have your screen time set, which most of us probably do, like you get that little thing and then you just hit ignore, which is what everyone does. And ScreenZen is like one step further where like you don't get access to your apps ever during the day. It's always on. Oh, wow. And when you hit unlock, you set your time for like how long you want to wait. So if I hit unlock on Instagram, it makes you wait 30 seconds or something. Oh. So you can't just impulsively do it.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
You can change that rate up, make it shorter or longer. I found 30 seconds for me is like the magical number. Yeah. And you can put yourself a message that's just like, for Instagram, I'm like, it just says like, will this increase sales? It's like, am I doing something that's going to generate a net positive in my life? Or am I going on there just because I'm used to doing it? Yeah. So you're like, click, and then it's like, are you going to generate sales by doing this? I'm like, no, I have nothing to even share today. I'm like,
I'm going to take this one with me.
Deny. And because you're sitting there for 30 seconds, like, oh, am I really like, you're really just going to sit there like, oh, my Instagram, yay. Like this is stupid. I don't even want to be on this app. Yeah. And after installing that and setting up that timer of like 30 seconds, I go on it 5 to 10 minutes a day. Yeah. And in that 5 to 10 minutes, I've found that I can post, I can look at every single comment, reply to the ones that need replying to, and go through every single DM and reply to every single DM, all within I give myself 7 minutes on the app every time I open it. Right. Wow. I can, in 7 minutes, like you only have maybe 20 messages. Most of the answers are no. Yeah. Right. Because it's most of the questions people have can be found. The answers can be found on my website. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the times I just have to go 5 no's and then maybe 10, this will be available the next week, whatever. Yeah. I found that like I can manage my whole business, which was 70,000 followers, selling around 200 knives. I can manage all my social media interaction within a 7-minute period most days. That's all you need to be on there for.
That's incredible.
So that's been a huge like life hack, I guess you could say, just because.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah, I mean, changing take the amount of time. We all can look at the screen time and see how much time we're wasting on our phone. Yeah. And like, there was definitely times where I'm like, oh, I didn't make that many knives this week. Cool. Yeah. Well, I had 8 hours a day, 5 hours a day, like screen time. Whereas now I got it down to, I think, under an hour now. Nice. Every day. Like, that's
impressive. No, those are all of those were such good life hacks, time management hacks too.
Yeah, those are the main things for me. I mean, if I have knife making related ones, because I'm sure some knife makers will be watching this, and like those ones would be automate, do it as soon as you can. Like get your CNC router, you can do it for under $1,000. And if you're interested in learning how to make it, that I'm going to be making a course soon teaching people how to do it. So that's exciting. Just start automating now. Like,
nice, man. That actually, I love that. So you just mentioned this course. That is the last question I have for you is, what is your next big thing?
Yeah. So that was, and I know that was your question, which is why we led into it like that. I love it. Because I am going to be making a course. I want to teach guys that are in their garage making knives how to scale up and make more knives by themselves without sacrificing quality, without, get that. You don't have to be sitting there grinding all day. Like you can use machinery to help you. So I want to make a course that basically goes from no knowledge of CNC and teaches you how to get into it without teaching you everything. Cause there's a lot of like the way I learned was online courses, but it's not geared towards knives. So it's just going to show you everything in these programs, and these programs have so much stuff and you don't need all of it. So I want to show people an easy way to go from no knowledge to being able to make a knife the way that I do. And so I'm super excited about it. I want to do that, and I want to combine that with material, like selling materials and stuff. Like, you know, most smaller guys, they have to buy materials from vendors that they make it kind of difficult sometimes in like the sizes and availability. I want to standardize it. So I'm going to teach you how to make a knife like myself and be like, look, for a small markup on what you would pay if you've had to deal with finding all these vendors to do steel material prep, Cerakote, heat treat, like I'll organize that for you. It'll just like, I'll help you basically use my vendors.
That's awesome, man.
And get you up to speed with like, you know.
Where are you going to post these courses?
I like Teachables. It's an online website. That's where I learned how to do CNC machining, was using a Teachables course. It's super organized. It's a paid course. Like it's going to cost money, but you're going to get straight to the point information.
Yeah.
And you know, some one-on-one coaching as well.
Nice.
So that's what I'm excited, you know, in terms, always want to be making new models and doing some other stuff like that. But that's something that I'm really interested in because, I've wanted to quit like many times doing this. And it's always mainly been when I was doing it by hand because like, dude, it's a lot of physical work on your body.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting there grinding, you have a respirator on, it's heavy, your neck's getting jacked up, your back's getting jacked up.
Wow.
I think that guys are going to automate anyways. Most guys, at least most guys have thought about it. You know, I know that when I was thinking about doing it, it was scary because I didn't know how to do it. And like I had hired people to do files for me for a while before I started doing stuff on my own. But it's just not a good way to do it. Like you need to have full control because going back and forth sending an email when it's a 2-second click of a button on a computer, you know, you need to be able to do it yourself. So I want to give people like the freedom of not feeling like they're, you know,
alone,
feeling like they're alone or stuck. Like if that's their primary source of income, making knives, and like, let's say you're in your 30s or 40s and like you're slowing down and it's getting hard on you because it was getting hard on me. Like, then it's an option for you, and it's easy to get. It's going to be a step, right? Because the router is the first step, making those handles and making the sheaths, which can be done on the router. Entry level routers are like $1,000. Yeah. Or at least when I got mine, maybe they're 2,000 now. Still not like a huge amount of money to get something that's going to it's gonna speed up a bunch of your process. You know, there's 3 parts to a fixed blade, really: sheath, blade, handles. So you're gonna be able to do like 2/3 of it on that machine, and then it's gonna allow you to make more knives, save up, and then get something like one of these big mills. And even that, I want to walk people through the process of it because it's scary. These are expensive. This machine was $50,000, right? Yeah. But it's like whenever I would look at the idea of owning a CNC mill, for me, it was so like scary and far fetched because it's something that you don't know how to use and it costs a lot of money, right? And it looks intimidating. There's a lot of buttons.
All these buttons,
And I want to be like, hey, no, I'm going to walk you through the process. And that includes financing. Like I didn't pay $50,000. I paid $8,000 to get this in.
And then really giving it to the knife maker.
Yeah. Like, hey, you're not going to have to pay $50,000. You're going to have to pay maybe $5,000 to like, or this one was $5,000 to get delivered, right? That's all you had to pay. And then like, you have to start making payments a month later, but guess what? I'm going to walk you through how to do that. Like you're not going to be trying to figure it out. It's just going to be like, here's how you do it. So that's something that I really want to work on because I think it's going to help a lot of people. And of course, an information product is something that is scalable. You make it once. Of course, you got to edit it when new information comes in, but you make it once and you can sell it to 1,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever. And there's surprisingly a lot more knife makers than you think. Like, thank you, Forged in Fire, because that show definitely like made a lot of people want to do it
for sure.
And for the people that, you know, make it past the 2-week point and want to keep doing it and like don't want to necessarily have to use a big production company. Or even then, like a lot of guys have this idea that because they're going to go use a production company or switch to CNC, they're going to lose quality. And like, that's not true at all. It's as good as you want to make it. It's just how good of a machinist do you want to become?
Yeah.
Like how much work do you want to put into it? So, I think, yeah, it's something that I'm definitely excited about. And, cause even with all these machines, I can't physically stand behind the, keep the machines running, for indefinitely. So having some kind of,
automation.
So having some kind of program that would like allow me to make a separate source of income, but also stay within my wheelhouse.
No, dude, I love the idea. And you're giving back based off the trial and error that you've gone through in your entrepreneur experience. So, I mean, that's noble in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, I've had other guys on the show who that is a massive source of income. They make a video and it just keeps coming in because people will keep buying it, right? Some of the jiu-jitsu guys I've had on, right? Like, whether it's Don Bell or Jeff Glover, and these guys have their courses and it's actually pretty lucrative. So
for sure.
Love that idea, man.
Yeah, I think the course will be fun, and I think helping people with the organizing all the vendors and material sourcing and all that. Like every screw is something that I had to go through like 20 iterations to find the right size and all that. I have all this information. It's all in my head. Like it's just going to be available for purchase and like streamlined for everyone else that, wants to grow their knife business. So
Yoni, I love it, man. Well, dude, what an amazing journey you have and such a cool business. I got to get my hands on some of your knives. They're beautiful.
Appreciate
you do
it.
an awesome job with them. And man, dude, just the way I like to end it is I like to try to expand the network of who I can get on the podcast.
Okay.
And is there anyone in your network who you would recommend as a good entrepreneur, some sort of person building a brand?
Yeah. So someone I think is doing a really good job as an entrepreneur is my buddy Rob Rast.
Dude, he's been on the show.
Has he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well then,
I feel like Spike and Miles for it. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah. Rob's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Other people, I mean, I know you've had Alex on because I was looking at your episodes. So I would say Alex, of course.
Yep.
I'm trying to think then maybe someone you wouldn't know of who's in this area. Do they have to, like, you want them to be pretty local?
It could be anywhere.
I mean, honestly, my stepdad would be someone cool to talk to. If I know you have some ties up in Northern California. So if you're ever up there, he would be cool. Cause like I said, he's a musician and not like a rock star by any means, like just a dude that plays piano and does weddings. And he figured out a way to build a like multi-million-dollar business doing that.
Yeah.
And like, then go on to buy like nightclubs and stuff. So like branch out, within his interests, but like, I don't know if you know the Catalyst nightclub in Santa Cruz.
Maybe.
It's like a big like venue that like, I mean, it's like a famous, one of those cool small venues to go to. And he like ended up buying like part of that and stuff years ago. So like staying, he stays within his realm of music, but like, was able to scale something that most people would think like isn't even a good, like good choice necessarily of a career to like typically to do. So he would be cool to interview for sure.
Oh, I love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for those recs. I love how you said Rob. That's funny. But dude, what a cool conversation, cool story. Man, how can people find you? Where can they find you online? Instagram handle and everything. So
Instagram is compliance_edge. It's shadow banned though, so you have to literally type the full thing out. And there's some like copycat ones where they'll put 2 I's or 2 L's and it like my logo. They're not shadow banned, so they'll pop up right away. So you have to make sure it's me.
Yep.
Pretty easy to tell which one's which though.
Yeah.
And then Facebook is just Compliance Edge Knives.
Yeah.
On TikTok now, which has been surprisingly good. That's I think also just Compliance Edge or Compliance Edge Knives. And then my website is complianceedgeknives.com. Super simple. And there's contact forms on there if anyone wants to reach me. My cell phone number is my number and it's on my website.
There you go.
I'm happy to talk to people. Like not that many people call surprisingly, but when they do, I'm here to chat and walk people through the buying process or answer any questions they may have. So,
well, Yoni Wunderman, what an amazing business, brand, and operation you've put together.
Hey, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. This was really fun. So,
absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.